Oh, we have a full week of games, including tonight's Spurs and Thunder rematch. Sunday night, we have a finals rematch of sorts. LeBron James' current team will face his former team. The Lakers host the Cavs. LeBron's still out with that injury. Tuesday, it's a doubleheader featuring the Lakers again as a nightcap. Pay close attention to Thursday afternoon, 3 o'clock game from London between the Wizards and the Knicks. And that will conclude a busy week of games right here on NBA TV. So we've officially passed the halfway point of the regular season. There's a line of demarcation in the top 5 teams in the Eastern Conference. We seem to know who they are heading towards the postseason. Unless there's a collapse, those 5 teams will be in. So your 6 through 11 teams all hovering around 500. Taking a look at those teams you see right there. Let's start with the Miami Heat because they seem to be in most control of their destiny. Justice Winslow now running the offense, 9-4 in their last 13 games. Brennan, why is that working so well for them, having Justice run that offense?
Well, I think they really have a diversified portfolio in their game anyway. They don't really have a true point guard. They have multiple guards out there, multiple guys that can handle the ball. Justice gives them a defensive toughness, a tenacity, and he's improved his jump shot tremendously from when he first came out. So I think it works for their team, but they basically just getting their best guys out there, their athletic guys, and they're letting them all go out there and play and have an impact on the game.
Griff, when we look at the Brooklyn Nets, that seems like a miraculous accomplishment by the front office, okay, because they're competitive now. Karis LeVert emerges as one of their best players. He goes down, and they just seem to respond by winning more games, winning 13 of their last 18. Can we assume that they're going to be in the mix in the playoffs as well?
It's interesting. I think they're one of the teams that has to decide if they're a seller or a buyer. And when I look at their circumstance, I think you probably call them a team that's still trying to accumulate assets. They're going to keep trying to add picks. So I wouldn't be surprised to see Sean Marks and Trajan Langdon look at potentially moving somebody along the lines of Joe Harris, by way of example, who's on a tremendously team-friendly contract. He's shooting 48.5% from 3.
They can't move our guy Joe, Griff. That's our guy.
Well, I understand, and the thing for me is they actually made it possible for Joe to become Joe, in large part because Kenny Atkinson has built the environment that he has there. They are a team that tells each other what they need to hear. They have very high accountability standards there, and guys play both sides of the floor with equal passion. And so Joe has gotten an opportunity to really thrive there. But I also think that if you're in the situation they're in, adding picks would be really significant for them. And while they could probably make a playoff run and a playoff push, they may not think they can do damage in the playoffs, and maybe you push things down the road one more year. It's a possibility.
Do you think that the young guys would benefit, though, from being in the playoffs and getting that experience, though?
I do think there's value in that, but I also think if you get into the first round of the playoffs and it's a mismatch when you're there, they only get so much out of that. And the long-term benefit of getting additional picks that you can build around, probably greater. Now, the counter-argument to this is, look, Joe Harris is there for next year. If they're going to try to be good next year and be a playoff team, how do you live without a guy that shoots quite like that? And I could hear that argument as well.
Well, taking a trip out west, when we look at the Utah Jazz, that's a team that we just all assumed would take a leap this season. And early in the year, they seemed to take a step back. Now they seem to be making that leap as far as Donovan Mitchell finding his stride. Last year, they got Rudy Gobert back to make their playoff push. This year, that wasn't the case. They were healthy and still struggled early on. What do you see from them now that's got them back on the winning track?
Well, ironically, I think one of the things that happened is they've had so many injuries to their point guards, they've needed Donovan Mitchell to be more ball dominant, and they've needed him to value possessions more. I think Donovan was really struggling early on with the quality of shots he was taking. His decision-making was lacking a little bit, and I think what you've seen in the absence of the other available playmakers, he's sort of taken the onus to be a little bit more mindful of quality of shot, getting other people involved. And certainly the number one issue is they've committed themselves to the defensive side of the floor at the same rate they did last year. They were all about overachieving at one point last year, and they came into this season maybe thinking they were better than they were. They're a young team. They're not used to taking people's best shots. But the schedule gets a lot easier from here on out from them, and you should see them be able to make some strides.
Yeah, and another thing is that Rudy Gobert has played very strong for them as well. He's continued to be beastly on the boards. He has been big inside. He has been eating the glass, 13 rebounds per game on the season. And when you have a big man in that like that that's giving you those extra possessions, he's able to block shots at the rim. He's able to control the paint on both ends, and that has a value for a team like Utah that's, they're not the most talented up and down team in the world. So a guy that can, when you slow it down, a guy that can have an impact defensively and then give you extra possessions on the other end, he's key for you. Also, he closes out possessions with great defensive rebounding.
I also think one of the things that happened to them early in the year is the new defensive rules took a big impact on them and had a big impact on them, and took a little while for them to figure out how to adjust to it, because both Joe Ingles and Jay Crowder can be very good defensively, but they were doing it with a little bit of physicality at one point. So they had to adjust to that. And when you also don't have ball dominant play creators like a lot of the better teams in the Western Conference, if that's going to be something that's at a premium because the officials are letting you drive now with almost impunity, not having another driver is a big issue as well.
Well, certainly the Houston Rockets have a guy driving that team, and James Harden and what he's accomplishing as you see the Rockets just skyrocketing up the standings. But then we also look at the Sacramento Kings, right? They started off red hot, 3-6 in their last 9. That backcourt dynamic at times with De'Aaron Fox and Buddy Hield. But do you think they're still a season away from being a team you can see in the postseason and able to try to contend to at least win a round?
Certainly win a round, I think that's true. I think it's interesting the two teams you just mentioned, Houston and Sacramento, one after the other, because you've got teams that are trying to play the complete opposite style of ball. Sacramento wants to force tempo as often as they can, and what happens in a circumstance like that, particularly with a young team, is you will be a very high turnover team. You will be somewhat mistake prone. De'Aaron Fox has been special good to this point. I think as he continues to grow and evolve, the expectation that team should have of itself will grow as well, because he is a guy who can take them a very long way. But again, they may have been a year ahead of themselves.
Yeah, I think this team is a year away. I think this backcourt is very good. They do have the outside chance to maybe sneak into the playoffs and maybe grab that 8th seed or the 7th seed. But a young backcourt like this is still going to take some time. There's still going to be some things that they're going to need to learn, some bumps in the road that they're going to go through. And I think they're going to be better for it. But in the short term, they're probably not going to make the playoffs. I definitely don't see them winning a round, because if you're the 8th seed or the 7th seed, there's a strong chance you run into a team like Denver or Golden State. That probably wouldn't be good for Sacramento at this time. But Sacramento fans, they say it's all purple talk out there, whatever. Listen, the future is very bright. This backcourt is dynamic. And in a couple of years, when we see other backcourts slow down, we might be saying this is the backcourt of the future. They definitely have next.
So looking at the bottom half of the Western Conference, trying to make that playoff push of the teams you see there, who do you think will end up eventually into the postseason, and who do you think will be home thinking, we were close but no cigar?
Well, two of the teams that are outside the playoffs and just outside the playoffs right now that stand out to me, Utah, despite all the injuries that they have.
Absolutely.
Because they have the easiest schedule against the rest of the way in the entire league, which is hard to do in the Western Conference. Their opponents have a 48% winning percentage the rest of the way. That's a much easier road to hoe than some of the teams that are above them. And then I look at New Orleans. And both of these teams have the best scoring differential of the teams that are just on the outside of the playoffs. And I think those are teams that are very likely to make a run. And depending on what happens with the Lakers and LeBron James, the length of his injury and his absence will have a great deal to say about who makes the playoffs and who doesn't.
Right.
Certainly something we're going to have to keep an eye out on the West Coast, trying to figure out, okay, what team still has the goods, what team does not. And when you look at Sacramento coming into this season, they've already overachieved, right? They've already gone to a place we didn't know that they would be. When you look at their roster overall, and you look at the backcourt, you think that's solidified, and they have a young player in Marvin Bagley and another guy they're developing in Harry Giles. What do you think their biggest need is as far as what they're going to try to do in the offseason in position they can grow fastest and most?
Well, I think one of the things you've seen when they've talked about potential trades for Sacramento, and they've been linked to Enes Kanter by way of example, I think they're looking for a big who can score in the paint. I think they're looking for somebody that they can believe in at the 5 a little bit more offensively than Willie Cauley-Stein. At the same time, I'm not exactly sure that's the direction I would go if I was them, because the defensive component is so important, the rim protection component is so important. Enes Kanter is not a defensive player in any way. And a team that wants to play that fast, giving up that many possessions, playing with fives that aren't going to protect the rim would scare me quite a bit. So I understand that they want some interior presence, but I think they may be better off just letting it grow together with the young kids.
Right.
So here's the scenario. Game on the line, you need a 3 to win. Who takes the shot? In this open court short, 3 expert sharpshooters, Hall of Famer Reggie Miller, Dennis 3D Scott, and Kenny the Jet Smith, discuss who they would give the rock to in the clutch.
Smith again. What a stroke for Kenny Smith. Throws it across. Miller for 3. Oh, he backed it in. He backed it in.
Hey everybody, Matt here with 3 of the most accomplished shooters in NBA history. 3D, Dennis Scott, Kenny Smith, the Hall of Famer Reggie Miller, and so of course...
This is a shooting show.
No, of course.
I was trying to figure out
I want to talk about shooting. One active player to take a game-winning shot. If you could choose, who is that guy?
Steph Curry, or Kevin Durant, or LeBron James.
Curry saves it 3. Steph good! Goes to the corner to shoot a 3 and hits to tie it up. Shot clock is on. James pull up for a 3. Rainbow!
Any more?
To take a 3 to win a game.
I take all 3 of those. Even LeBron James, in terms of his ability to get it off, he'll get it off comfortably. Because of his size, strength, and ball handling ability. So he would get it off comfortably. He doesn't shoot with the same accuracy as those other 2 guys, but he gets a better comfort level at times than those 2 guys.
For me, active, if we're just trying to get a shot clock's going down, it's Kyrie Irving. His ball handling ability to be able to get to any spot on the floor and get his shot off, to your point, he's going to get his shot off. And he's one of the few point guards, well, there's a lot of point guards in the league, and can shoot the 3.
Definitely guys that I probably would have picked, but if I'm going with someone with ice water in their veins, need a shot, I'm going with Dame Lillard. A guy that can create his own shot, or you can put him in a high pick and roll, shoots with depth, can shoot deep, and if you foul him, he's going to make foul shots.
Does the answer change for any of you if I say it's a catch and shoot 3 to win a game?
Klay Thompson.
Yeah. Catch and shoot, I would add Klay to a catch and shoot. Like, it swung back out to him. I would add Klay to that for sure.
You know, it's funny, we were talking, James Harden.
Ooh, yes, to get a bucket, yes.
He could do.
Oh, my goodness, to get a bucket, yeah.
I mean, we're
Right, catch the dribble, off the dribble.
Off the dribble, he's
Off the
great,
dribble,
but
no question about it.
He gets to walk and shoot it. So he gets he gets to do the running man.
I'll make it harder. Let's go back in history. Any player who's ever played to win a game with a 3.
Oh, we're sitting right here.
Oh,
Who are you picking?
No, there's
He's
a
sitting
lot
right
of
here.
guys.
No, I'm not. You could go last if you're not going to talk about yourself.
I'm gonna go with Larry Legend.
No.
To make a 3.
3?
He said to make a 3, right?
To make a 3.
To make a 3 at the end of the game.
Celtics have got 3 seconds. 2. Bird, a runner. It's good!
I'm going with Larry Legend.
I'm going with the guy sitting here only because the moment for Larry is always the moment. For Reggie, he creates more moments, meaning he's looking for an opportunity. I think at times you hope we get down 3. You know, so there's a difference. But Larry's like, no, I'm not even going to let you get up. I'm going to beat you. He's waiting for that moment. And so for me, watching Reggie over the years, I would have to say Reggie would be the guy I would be. Like,
Good looking, Kenny.
No,
Yeah.
but and take it a step further, with Larry, as much as we, love his shooting, he's not going to get open in that situation. Where you, and I'm going to throw Ray Allen into the mix, both of you guys are going to get open because you're probably the best running without the basketball, running off screens and getting open.
Now,
Now,
I'm going to put Larry second, though. I wasn't like,
Kenny, Larry's third. Ray Allen's above him. Well, come on now. Those
But
Ray
you know
Allen
what?
and Reggie Miller, we need a 3. Larry's not getting open. Him and Ray are getting open to get that 3 off.
Rebound, Bosh. Back out to Allen. His 3-pointer. Bang!
There's a guy that I would want to be in this mix because he's the leading three-point shooter in the history of playoffs over certain attempts. You know who that guy is, right?
Kenny the Jet Smith.
You know.
I was waiting for that.
You look at
That leads to my next question. You may have already answered it, but if in a theoretical world where I could play, and I had to choose one of the three of you to win a game with the three, where am I going?
We're all going to pick ourselves. That's how confident we. I mean, in all of our careers that we've all hit game winners, we've all hit buzzer beaters, so we know we can do it. So if you're asking openly, I want to, as much as I love both these guys, I want to take that shot first.
I would honestly say that these guys were better three-point shooters in this regard. That was such a big part of their diet. And for me, it became a part of my diet later on. But I had to learn to be that. It is, like Reggie Miller, we played at UCLA in Pauley Pavilion and in North Carolina. We were like, guard him from here.
Right.
That didn't come into my life until about my fourth year in the NBA. It was always part of Dennis Scott's repertoire, a steady part of that diet, the long ball shot. I was catching up with you all the time.
Right.
Now, I just still think I can shoot the ball. But I just know that you guys it was a better diet.
We all have different strengths at different times, but at the end of a game, to a man, we're all going to say, put the ball in our hands. Kenny wants those shots.
Yeah, one of the
He
biggest
wants those shots.
one of the
I
biggest
want those
moments.
shots.
Yeah.
We were actually in the biggest moments in Rocket and Orlando basketball history. Hit a three-pointer to tie the game to send it to overtime in the NBA Finals.
He's been on fire and hits. He's tied the game.
But before that, this dude,
In the regulation,
he comes
right.
back and hits another one.
Back to Scott for three, and he's tied
Back to back.
Yep.
It was him and I.
You haven't made my job any easier.
Well, hey, how about this? Who are you going to pick? If your life depended on it, and your family's life depended on it, and they needed a three to get them out. Come on, man.
I will answer the question. I've got bad news for you and my family. I turned it over before I ever got it. You lost the game.
I will tell you this: if you
Why I'm sitting here and not there.
if you gave it to any of us, your family lives.